Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to make through an entire video with the girls and Panzer crew. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's QuickyBaby, and welcome back to World of Tanks as the hippo is showing you its rear. I've got a confession to make, something that I have to admit I'm slightly embarrassed about. I have been enjoying the E50M recently. Now, I'm famous for a very long time ago now saying that this tank was weak. And while it has been buffed significantly since then with turret armor now that actually works, it's a bit of a weird one that I'm slowly but surely enjoying this vehicle more and more and more as time goes on. Look, the E50M, the reason why I said it was weak back in the day was because I just felt that everyone fired heat at me. I didn't feel like that turret armor worked, but as I mentioned, the turret armor has been buffed since then. But mostly it was about the damage per minute. This thing fires 6.25 rounds a minute in World of Tanks with 390 alpha damage. And considering that other vehicles have that kind of rate of fire, such as the 121, but just have better alpha damage to go along with it, or a vehicle like the UDES, the 1516, has a better rate of fire and better alpha damage as well, I just never really quite got to grips with this tank, because I'm often the kind of player who wants to play aggressively, get stuck in, take out the enemy as quickly as I possibly can, and then be able to... for that, I'm going to need high damage per minute, right? Now, keep in mind how many shells we're missing at this G-Saw here. We missed one shell. We're going to fire a second one. Ah! I felt that one must have just grazed the top of the turret. The first one was tricky because we were trying to shoot through the opaque bush, which is why I went into the bush. I guess I could have got spotted by going into the bush there, because remember, if you're not behind the bush, you're going to lose a lot of the camera rating when you fire, and it's not going to prop you up and remain hidden from the enemy tank. Just remember those missed shells on the G-Saws. They might come back to haunt us later on in the game. So as I was saying, the E50M, something which I never truly enjoyed, because I do feel that the low damage per minute just stops me from being able to deal with whatever is in front of me. And quite often I like to get myself in really tricky situations where then I'm going to need exceptional firepower to be able to blast my way out of them. Recently, however, I've been slimming it down a little bit. Not entirely, though. I think one of the main reasons why I've been enjoying this vehicle recently when I think about it is, slowing it down a little bit and playing that kind of more snipery role. But more importantly, just my absolute love of ramming in this vehicle, and also getting a turbocharger on this thing to pump up its speed from its 60 km/h top speed limit up to 65, which definitely feels absolutely lovely on this tank. And when you do that, you do feel that you're quite a fast, heavy medium tank getting around, and while your camera rating isn't going to be very good, so you're not exactly the most sneaky of vehicles, just to have that kind of ramming impact with the E50M just feels absolutely wonderful. And it doesn't matter what your damage per minute is if you can manage to pull off a 300, 400, 500, or even a 1000 damage ram. Whether or not you're going to be seeing some of those in this video remains to be seen. I'm not going to spoil it. So I'm firing at this FE405 here, and considering that they're keeping their turret still, I thought, they're AFK, an opportunity to be able to hoover up the entirety of a tier 10 British tank destroyer. But considering that the FE405 is now pointing their gun directly at me, I was very concerned. Luckily, it looks like the shell misses our vehicle, and we're going to put high explosive rounds after rounds into this weakly armored British TD, and they are shut down very quickly. We were rolling high there. Those high explosive rounds in this tank have got 510 alpha damage, and we were rolling up to 564, 533. You don't need to put too many rounds in to be able to take out a tier 10 tank when you're doing that. And it makes even the poor rate of fire that this vehicle has feel great. Okay, you know when I said that it remains to be seen whether I'm going to be ramming anything? How about taking it to the Kunze-Panzer here? He's got 1,300 hit points. Oh. Yeah, doesn't really have 1,300 hit points anymore. Now with only 76 left after blocking a shell, ramming that tank for 919, we take out pretty much most of a tier 9 medium tank, just like that. And that's really where I've been enjoying my E50M and where I felt incredibly strong. However, I put myself in harm's way there. We get shot by a K91 high explosive anti-tank round, an Object 140 round as well, and a Gorilla that I did not expect to be in the rear corner. I predicted that the Gorilla would be up in this kind of a location, and by making an aggressive play, I'd kill the Kunze-Panzer and then move on to here where I'd be protected. Taking that 760 damage from the Gorilla in the side in an unpredictable A1 defensive position for the team that is actually meant to be attacking. I could not have predicted that. Now down to 523 hit points. We're going to have to be pretty careful. A trade that I thought was going to end up being magical for me actually ended up being a little bit too aggressive. But you know what? We're up to 4,400 damage here within the first 6 minutes of the game. I was maybe being a little bit greedy, thinking, hey, this is going to be a win. But now that I'm looking at the hit points that we can see at the top of our screen, this game's actually neck and neck, and in fact, the enemy team is slightly ahead with regards to the damage that they've dealt. Although, I haven't seen the Object 279E recently, and I haven't seen the AE Phase 1. Now we do, as he just gets himself out the game. And so maybe we've made up a little bit of the hit points around there. Okay, so in this situation, this is why I love the E50M. Just working a ridgeline, its gun feels so reliable, its alpha damage feels meaty compared to an Object 140. And when you're firing high explosive anti-tank, the Object 140's armor really doesn't hold up very well. Now we're going to crest the ridge here. Unfortunately, they're going to spot us because of our terrible camera rating for a medium tank. But we managed to put one shell in, and I don't want to let them get into close quarters combat where they might shoot my turret. So I'm going to come around the corner and clutch shot over the ridge, shutting down the Object 140. I think that was a good play by the 140 to actually turn the heat up against the E50M. I just don't think that they quite expected us to be that aggressive. And I know that when it comes to close quarters combat, with the Object 140's turret being a lot harder to hit than the E50M, I really wanted to destroy that tank before they closed the distance and turned it into close quarters combat. Alright, so beautiful situation here for the E50M. Having prevented the Object 140 from digging us out, now we can kind of defend the enemy's starting location from their non-advance. Get a little bit more spotting on the WZ-111-14, and there's the G-Saw that we missed twice earlier. Are they going to spot me and get me taken out here? Oh, that was actually a really poor shell. The G-Saw looked like they were going straight, but then they turned right just as I was about to fire, weaved, but I probably still should have hit that. And that's the third time that we've missed that G-Saw this game. Still on that same 100 hit points they've been pretty much since the first minute or two of this battle. Alright, ooh, delicious shell into the back of the Chinese heavy tank. Now he's down to 379 hit points. We can manage to put one more shell into them, and that should be the end. There'll be a tiny little corner, because the side armor on the WZ-111-14 on the upper hull is pretty... Well, actually, that is pretty much the hull armor. So this part will be incredibly well angled, but it means that from the back, we actually have kind of a triangle here that we're going to be able to hit as he manages to come around the corner. But the other stuff is going to bounce. All right, so we've got a Conqueror. We're going to put an APCR round into the Conqueror's tracks, taking the hit points down to 613. And with 2 minutes left on the game and 8,000 hit points, I have no idea how the enemy are going to be able to take us out. And I did not think they're going to be able to take the cap circle either. But oh dear, look at this. Somebody's just got into the cap circle with enough time, unless somebody interrupts them, to be able to take this game down. The Gorilla is aggressive, comes forward, fires a shot at me, meaning that I've got enough opportunity to be able to hit them. But I've got to be careful because the Conqueror could be hiding behind that bush. A little bit of an awkward situation here for the E50M. This bush actually blocks vision between the two ridges. I get spotted as I pull back there, probably by the Conqueror, through the bush, or not through the bush, but just as I manage to go around the bush. But I don't actually manage to see the Conqueror in that situation. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop up. I don't get spotted. But because I've now spotted the Conqueror from that bush, what I can actually do is come out around this corner, and the bush that I just highlighted to you is actually going to keep me covered so the Conqueror isn't going to be able to see me, and I'm going to try and fire around at them blind, and we're going to find out whether we've managed to shave off a few of the 600 hit points that the Conqueror had. Unfortunately not. Still up to 613, which means that they're not a one-shot, so we've got to watch out for that. Now a second tank has just entered the cap circle, and look at the bar at the top. 10 seconds until this game is going to be lost. The K91 is inside the cap circle. I'm just praying that my 3 tanks towards the south and also the artillery can manage to interrupt as I'm managing to try and hold back the Conqueror, the Gorilla, with even possibly the Progetto 66 up there. My team interrupt with 2 seconds left, killing the K91, and now there's a G-Saw in the cap circle with 8 seconds, and thank goodness the Foch B went and delivered some hero rounds from the back of the map, allowing us to interrupt that G-Saw and also take out the K91. And good vision by the 277 as well to deal with him. But that really shows you just how bad those 3 misses that we had earlier on in the game were. To all intents and purposes, those misses gave the... Well, no, for all reason, they gave the opportunity to the enemy team to be able to take down this game. And that is what you've got to watch out for in World of Tanks. When you miss those shells that you might not realize the implications for later on in the battle. And you very nearly lost this one for our team. So I've shown how good the E50M is for playing that kind of sniper role. Obviously a vehicle like this with an accurate German gun will do well in those situations. Now I'm going to show that the E50M doesn't just need a long-range engagement snipe fest to also do well, because it can throw its weight around, and considering it's got very decent side armor of 80, as well as good upper frontal hull armor of 150, it can also be a meaty boy for being able to side scrape. Alright, so a T-54E1 comes around the corner and bounces one shot off me, bounces a second shot off me, and I can see now that it's actually doing 240 damage, meaning that they're going to have 5 rounds. There's the fourth. One more. I'm not going to use my repair kit. Now I'm going to use my repair kit, and I'm going to track the T-54E1 once again after they've already used their repair kit. And oh dear, I'm really sorry for this stock tier 9 American heavy tank. But hell, I've been playing stock tier 9 American heavy tanks on my free-to-play account, and I can tell you that T-54E1 is not one that you want to be playing. But they're out the game. Nonetheless, you can't have mercy on your opponents just because they're stock. You can feel a little bit sorry for them, but you need to get them out the game quickly before maybe they'll have an opportunity later on in the battle. Okay, so having dealt with the T-54E1 and seeing that AMX-50B approaching up my right, I decide to go forwards. Let's go see if we can bully some of the enemy tanks and be able to try and make a break through this eastern flank on Ensk. The Object 140 performs a retreat. Not sure if that's a good move, considering that he's leaving 3 whole tanks behind for us to be able to divide up between us. The AMX-50B putting in a few rounds. I managed to put a round to the Skoda as well, and I'm going to fire at the T-30, who's just managed to miss or hit. Didn't quite see, but they fired, so I know that they're reloading, so I'm going to be able to start to whittle them down as well. The T-54 lightweight advancing across here. Will we get a shot in? Of course we will. German accuracy working well for us, and it looks like that T-54 lightweight was not looking where they were going, and so we're going to put another round into them for good measure. Pulling off a couple of crits there, maybe a fuel tank, maybe an ammo rack. Doesn't really matter because they've gone back into the town, at least for a second, until the AMX-50B shuts them down. We receive a high explosive round from the T-30 with the HE Nerfs. Even with a 155mm caliber gun, those really aren't going to do a good amount to us. We're going to side scrape out around the corner against the Object 140, ricocheting a shell, managing to spot the artillery at the back, which we manage to get shut down very quickly. And you see that it's just this kind of methodical approach for the E50M. It's like, get on a corner, side scrape, snipe at what you can, and this situation, we're going to bully this T110E3. So I decide not to track the T110E3. I decide to actually do damage to him there, and it's something that I'm kind of going to regret because he ends up hull down in this situation. So I actually believe I miss his tracks altogether there with a terrible shot, which is going to put me under a lot of pressure. However, luckily, I've got a good rate of fire. I'm going to track his right track to lurch him, and then I'm going to go and sneak in behind him. And then now we're going to put one more track into his side, and this is where it's a good time to rub it in and get a turret mate. And when I'm ramming him here, this isn't to rub salt in the wounds of the T110E3 here. What it is actually doing is these micro collisions keep the tracks off. And by keeping his tracks off, we can actually just do damage straight up to his side and don't even have to try and shoot through the tracks. We follow up a shutdown on the T110E3 by finishing off a Type 5 Heavy as well. And this is where the E50M just feels amazing, right? We've been continuously firing 5,000 damage, 1,300 spotting and tracking, 4 minutes into the game, and now it's time to go after an Object 140. Unfortunately for me, he actually manages to track me, stopping me from being able to deal with the 140, and they follow up an AP round with a heat round that actually goes through our turret. Bit of a disappointment there. I only did 85 damage. You can obviously tell I'm so used to doing high damage rams with the E50M. But I was really hoping to get something a little bit more magical on Ensk. So this Object 430, unfortunately, I do a little bit what like the T-54 lightweight did earlier, where I rammed the tracks of the Tortoise, stopping me from being able to get around the corner. But that is an 8,000 combined game in just under 5 minutes on Ensk. So not one, not 2, but 3 helpings of E50M gameplay today. And these are all from the current patch of World of Tanks. It's not like I'm saving up months and months and months of gameplay and just cherry-picking those kind of perfect games. Sure, these are the better ones of all of the games I've played in the E50M this patch, but I really wanted to highlight that this vehicle is just working so darn well for me recently. And I wonder if that is because you have more space to side scrape. I wonder if that is because a lot of the high explosive rounds have been nerfed, and so a well-armored vehicle like this is going to be even better. I think a lot of it might be because of the lack of artillery allows a big tank like this that was previously focused by artillery, that has armor that now of course works against high explosive rounds as well, to really just sit out in positions like this and just go to town. If you think about the Ghost Town game that we played, we were out pretty much in the open, just sniping. And what you're going to see here is just the absolute dream fest. I use the matchup that I'm in, which is a decent matchup, to be able to bully my way into a all-powerful position, stopping the T-92, maybe intimidating the Object 430U, and then I'm going to use this position to just absolutely grind down my opponents. And this is what I guess a lot of people have been really enjoying about the artillery nerfs, is that you have more games with lower amounts of artillery. And trust me, when you're the top tier tank, and when you're a heavily armored top tier tank at that, it just feels absolutely amazing. I just wonder how it's going to feel for all of these players who are now just caught completely out in the open and getting absolutely grinded down by the top tier tank, which isn't getting slowed down by artillery, can kind of just chill out in the open and can go to absolute town on them. There's both good things and bad things about the artillery nerfs. I think most of the good things are happening to heavy tanks, and also for the more aggressive and the better players are definitely benefiting the most from the artillery nerfs. But on the other hand, it has, at least in ranked I feel, and in other situations, just create these scenarios where, because the artillery aren't focusing the tanks in the open, because the artillery are often not focusing the top tier tanks, or should we say the vehicles that are winning the game in the most prominent positions, that now it just feels as if the game kind of just goes that way because of the one position that has been taken and that is being dominated. Especially in ranked. I feel like now with the 10 versus 10 game mode and the lack of self-propelled guns, it feels as if a lot of just big clusters of tanks all in the same positions just grinding through is what is happening. But I want to talk about all of that more in another video. Let me focus on the E50M and why I think I might be owing this tank an apology for all of the memes and all of the doubt that I had in it all those years ago, because this gun just feels so darn consistent with 0.3 accuracy, with 2.1 seconds aim time, and with good gun handling to boot. You could consider, I guess, in a vehicle like this, not even using vertical stabilizers, although I should think that that would probably be a misplay. My personal preferred way to play... Actually, no, I am not using vertical stabilizers on this tank right now. What am I talking about? I'm using a gun rammer, I'm using vents, and I'm using a turbo. Although, whether or not the vehicle really needs the turbo is down to you. For me, it seems to work out, and because of the decent aim time that the vehicle has, and the fact that I think it's a tank that doesn't really fire on the move so much as stops in a position and snipes, especially because of its longer rate of fire. I don't think that, unlike maybe a Soviet medium tank, it really needs those vertical stabilizers. But again, you do you. If you find that the vehicle has really awkward gun handling without vertical stabilizers, then maybe you should use them. And all right, we're now above that pesky Char Future 4 that we bounced off earlier. And I was thinking, once again, 4.5 minutes into this game and 8,500 combined. Let's finish it off with a hero mode. Oh. That wasn't scripted. What? I was meant to ram the 430U below me for 1,400. Hey, at least the Scorpion's doing it wrong. Yeah. What can I say? I actually ended up taking, as we can see up in the top corner of the screen there, 1,384 damage for what was possibly one of the most awkward collisions I think I've had. At least in the last few weeks. I am a bit of a muppet when it comes to cliff map. As you've seen in probably some of the best moments videos, if I'm not crashing trying to come down from the lighthouse, I'm finding new ways to do 75% of my entire health on a tier 10 tank, just like that. So we've got a high caliber for our 7,300 damage that we dealt on Ghost Town, but because we didn't really get much assistance, not too many kills, it's only a first class medal. Our second round on Ensk, even though the game was half in duration, we get a high caliber steel wall and a Confederate medal for our 6,000 damage dealt and 2,000 assistance. Manages to prop that up to being an ace tanker. And then finally, I managed to get 22,000 experience, although that is with a 5 times experience game and a 3,000 experience, or shall I say 3 times bonus, multiplying out a great 1,380 base experience. And it was looking like it was going to be the dream game until we managed to crush ourselves. 7,000 damage dealt, 2,500 assistance, gives us a Confederate, a high caliber, and a tank sniper. And we make a decent profit with or without a premium account. And it's always quite satisfying when you also see your own name and your own tank in the battle efficiency list of vehicles that you were meant to have done things to. Or not. One thing's for certain, I've got a confession to make. I'm slightly embarrassed to admit this, but E50M, I think I was wrong. I am truly enjoying playing this tank, something that I never thought that I would say about the vehicle. I don't think it's the anime crew. I don't really think that the vehicle's just been buffed all that much. I think the main reasons why I'm enjoying it are because the meta is shifting. The lack of high explosive rounds, the lack of artillery, and also my love for all things fast, heavy, that can ram in World of Tanks. Definitely get yourself controlled impact on this vehicle. You won't regret it, and the E50M will be able to obliterate its opponents if you get that perfect ram, bit like we saw on the Kunze-Panzer. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this longer video with multiple replays of gameplay. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know if there are any tanks out there that originally you didn't truly vibe with, but when you eventually gave them a chance, that they surprised you, and now you might even admit that you like them even a little bit. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.